Hello, welcome to my Urban Ashram in Lancashire, England. This is my third hangout with you. I think the first hangout we spoke about the Pancha koshas, and I shared with you how important it is to identify one's Atman, one's real self, and to work to eliminate, to destroy these layers or sheets that one has hiding oneself. And then the second week, which was last week, we spoke about the need to learn, to practice, to study, to research for the truth. And I shared with you my own practice, which is Advaita Vedanta, and I also touched upon the New Age movement called Neo-Advaita, and I clarified that this is not my tradition, this is not my practice, and I do not teach from this philosophy. I teach Advaita Vedanta. I spoke last week that I cannot teach you Advaita because Advaita is who we are. We are one consciousness. We are the Atman. We are Brahman. We are that. And it's not something that one can teach. But Vedanta is something that can be taught, and Vedanta is the end of the Vedas. It's the conclusion of the knowledge and wisdom that has been received, and the Vedas have shared this knowledge and wisdom with us, and we've decided that there is these fundamental truths that are written in what is called the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. So I can teach these three texts, these three scriptures, and what they have brought to us, these fundamental truths for us to explore and to question and to gain insight from as to who we really are, why we're here, what life is all really about. Advaita Vedanta really is, it's a search for the truth. And one can practice Advaita Vedanta, and it is really a practice, it's a science. No one can ever really truly say that the truth is such or the truth is that. We're always exploring, the truth is always expanding and growing into our awareness. So Advaita Vedanta can be explored, and the science can be studied by anyone who has a real desire for the truth. You can be from any background, you can be from any religious background or spiritual background, or from a non-religious or spiritual background, and you can join together in the search for the truth using the sacred text to assist you in that process. And I've also been sharing with you how I have created, it's took me a long time, I've created my own yoga, which is called Eka Yoga, which means one yoga. And I have just completed this material, which is now on my online shop. You can purchase the materials, and then once you have purchased the materials, which are very beautiful, then you can study with me online together, individually, one-on-one. And it's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to studying with individuals. So to introduce you to my program, we have 3 manuals that I have created. One is a manual that I've written that has the answers really to the questions. The other is a workbook which has quite a few questions and practical activities for you to follow. And the third is one of the Upanishads, the Mundaka Upanishad, for you to study. It's translated into English, and you get 3 teaching videos for 3 of the practical activities, which is the first one is a fire yagna. So I teach you how to perform this yagna to enlighten you more to your Atman, your real self, your true self, and burn away those vasanas, those negative tendencies, those latent desires. And the second one is meditation on a Mahavakya, which is one of the greatest sayings from the Upanishads. I think I spoke about it last week. We start with Prajnanam Brahma, and we meditate on this. We recite this mantra repetitively within the mind, Prajnanam Brahma, to enlighten oneself to the true self, real self, the Atma within. And then the third practice is to study the Upanishads, to study the particular Upanishad that I have identified, which will help you to realize the Atman. And so I have these 3 videos that I've made that you also get with your materials, and also some beautiful Japamala beads to assist you in concentration and focus when you're learning to study the mantra in a meditative way, as is outlined in the program. So I'd like to introduce you to some of the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta this evening, which I don't think, I keep saying Eka Yoga and then never say anything else, so I wanted to break it down a bit more. There are 9 modules in the yoga, and the first module is an introduction to the understanding of the Eka Yoga program and its purpose, like why, what's the point of another yoga, why has Sri Ramana created this program, and what is its purpose, and how can I benefit from it. And then the second module is to learn about Advaita Vedanta and its history, because there's a lot of, like I said last week, a lot of New Age teachers, philosophers, who say all these words and concepts and don't necessarily give the background and the history to it. So I wanted you to understand where Advaita Vedanta comes from. The third module is to learn about Upasana and how it develops Paramatika Bhakti. And the fourth module is to understand Nidijasana and how it controls our Antakarana, our mind. So these are all words that sound very strange, and maybe you think, oh, it's too much for me. But once you understand the philosophy behind the word, it really makes such a big difference in your way of life. Because this philosophy, this knowledge, this wisdom, it should be available to everyone. And the words, the jargon, the concepts shouldn't be a barrier. They shouldn't be an obstacle. One should be able to know this knowledge and be able to put it into practice in daily life. And I want to help you to do this. That's one of the reasons why I created this introduction to Advaita Vedanta philosophy. I know all about Advaita, and I've been studying Vedanta for many years now, and I know Advaita Vedanta, and I understand it in a very intellectual, a very philosophical, a very scientific way. But I'm also able to break it down in a very down-to-earth, practical way, so that you can understand it without having to study it for many, many years and understand the scientific intellectual philosophy. So then the next module, we learn about seva, service to the self, and how it develops purusartha. Then module 6, we learn about the concept of darshan and how it affects the 3 gunas. Darshan meaning to be sat near a realized soul, and what's the point of that, and the effects of it, and how it affects our 3 gunas, our energetic vibrations. There are 3 gunas within everything, and these vibrations, they're like frequencies, and they vary from moment to moment, thing to thing, person to person. And we can control these 3 gunas when we understand them. And it affects our thinking, it affects our emotions, and it obviously then affects our actions. And then the next module is to understand yoga and how practicing yoga is paramount to achieving Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti is the capacity to realize oneself in this existence, this lifetime. So it's not working towards realization in another life, or hoping that on the deathbed one realizes Brahman, but that the concept of Jivan Mukti is that you can get realization now in this incarnation, now, right now, in this lifetime, before death, which is a very powerful promise that Advaita Vedanta makes, that it's very achievable. There's a high success rate when one practices Advaita Vedanta, that one can then realize oneself in this body, in this lifetime. And then the next module is where we learn about the study of the scriptures and how it helps us to develop a relationship with Brahman. Brahman is the absolute consciousness. The Atman is the mirror, the reflection of Brahman. The Atman is within us, and it is the same as Brahman. And a relationship is not with a relationship that is something outside of oneself, but something that is very much within inside of ourselves. And how we can cultivate and nurture that relationship with that part of ourselves, our real self, who we really are, instead of all the time spending cultivating relationships with our false self, our panchakoshas, as it were, which human beings are very practiced in and have strong habits formed, whereby this is an unconscious tendency to develop a relationship with our false self, who we're not. And then the last module is where we understand tapas and how developing self-discipline really does need to be, it needs to be like a thread that runs through our sadhana, our daily spiritual practice, our way of life. We must cultivate self-discipline in order to succeed. We cannot sit like this now and just wait for self-realization to come to us. We cannot just sit watching videos and hope that we'll get some kind of realization. Tapas means that we do the work, that we push and we try hard. This idea, yes, that we're already there, we're already self-realized. Well, yes, we are already self-realized. Everyone is already that. But you try telling that to people who are not in that experience. They're not living in that moment inside of themselves all the time. And they're having to work very hard to pay their bills, or to keep a home, or to take their children to school, or to have relationships with neighbors, or all the daily activities that one has in normal daily life. And anything that that one has to experience in daily life can feel like hard work. And why we think that experiencing the self and having more realizations of oneself should be easier. I have no idea. I don't understand that concept. It's so beautiful to push, to work hard to obtain something. Something that takes great effort is much more valued and much more respected than something that is just offered freely on a plate. I know myself that, like, childbirth, for example, is very painful, and yes, it's very hard work, but and requires great effort. But the boons from this this process of birth is so powerful and so worth every moment that that we must realize that, you know, giving birth to this Atman, this reality of to materialize it into our physical existence is very much like giving birth, and it requires effort and great pain. And it doesn't mean that it's any less of an experience because there's pain and suffering. It actually means that it's more of an experience because we've worked hard to reach somewhere, to place ourselves away from that goal and to see how far we have to journey, to travel, and then to move towards that goal and to feel as though we're reaching it, that we're getting closer. It's such a beautiful experience to be had. It's such a blessing to feel as though you're moving closer to something, rather than to be sat saying, I'm already there, but not really feeling like you're there when you're having to use all this effort to live your daily life. And it feels incongruent. It feels like what you're saying is your reality and your external reality don't match. That yes, I'm saying I am that, and I'm already there, but my life is not a reflection of that. And one's life only becomes a reflection of that when one believes that to be true. And using this self-discipline through your spiritual practices helps you to feel closer to believing that it's true, believing that yes, I am that, and that's an honor and a grace that one can achieve. So I'm thinking that that's enough of me sharing. I've shared a bit more about my goal, which is to have more students of Advaita Vedanta. I don't mean just for myself, I mean for any teacher of Advaita Vedanta. I would like to see more Advaita Vedanta in this country and in Europe and more Western countries. I'd like to see more ashrams. I'd like to see more Satgurus, the real ones, teaching people, sitting near to them and letting people get together and search for the truth, to not accept what the Satguru says because that's not what should be happening, but to wrestle and fight and struggle and give birth to the truth. And yes, I work very hard every day to obtain that, to reach that goal of mine, and I feel that I reach small goals every day to manifest that reality. And I hope that this evening is yet again another opportunity for me to contribute towards reaching that goal, where more and more people are realizing the worth and the value of the Advaita Vedanta texts and practices, and that it can be implemented in modern Western life. It is approachable and it is a resource that one can tap into to help oneself to have a better, happier way of life. So I thank you for letting me to share this very powerful philosophy with you, and it's good to be here. Thank you. If anybody would like to ask a question before we finish, you are welcome to do so now. I've got my glasses on. I can see less with them on. We have no questions? Or anyone has a comment? Doesn't have to be a question. So Penny says, given that the spiritual path is so hard, how do we know we are making progress? That's a good question. In my experience, I find that people know they're making progress from their interactions, their interconnectedness with one another. That's why it's so good to come together and study together and do spiritual practices together. Not solely to do that, to also have a daily practice at home by yourself. But I find that chemistry, that science of that with this organism, that the reflections and the mirrors of other people really shows us whether we're stuck or whether we are moving, whether we're progressing. So I think that it's not advisable to have any kind of practice or to study any kind of philosophy alone in isolation, because the mind can do crazy tricks with oneself, and one can feel stuck when one is moving, and one can feel like one is progressing when one is stuck. And so that's why it's always advisable to have this reflective process from other people. Or if you have the opportunity to sit with your guru or someone who you respect, then that's also helpful, and to have them show you through the reflective process of that interconnected whole where you are and how things are with you. So I think that helps. I think it makes all the difference. Thank you for the question. Sri Lalita says, what is the best for me now? To finish my studies or to take another way? I don't know what your studies are or whether you're referring, I hope you're referring to your spiritual studies or your Atman studies and not your academic studies. I apologize if I'm mistaken. I think that one should, the scriptures always say that one must follow one path, especially one path at a time, because life is hard enough and it's confusing enough as it is without having all these different ideas and approaches. It gets very confusing for people. I meet so many people and they're so confused because this teacher said this and this guru said this and this book said this, and they don't know which is right for them, and comparing it with other people's opinions just gets into a crazy mess. So I know that it's more sensible to practice one path at a time at least, and until you've found your path, you will research, you will study, you will Google nowadays what what you can, and you will see and find things that you are most interested in. And I suggest that you do this, but if you have a spiritual practice, that spiritual practice is from one tradition or one path or one philosophy, and don't try and mix them, because that's when it gets confusing. I know all paths are one, and they're all leading us to the same destination, but the practices are so diverse and varied that I don't agree that you should mix them, because each practice comes from a philosophy, and the practice has the consciousness of the philosophy inside the practice. So when you practice the practical activity from that philosophy, you're also imbibing the philosophy into oneself. So it's not advisable. If you understood consciousness, you would know that you don't mix. You do from one thing at a time. So you could set maybe 6 weeks or 3 months. You say for 6 weeks, for 3 months, I'm going to do this practice from this tradition, this philosophy. I'm going to try it, and if it doesn't work, then I'll start my search again, and I'll do that for another 6 to 3 months until eventually I find what works for me. So I hope that helps. Tracy, thank you, Sri Lanita, for your question. Tracy says, what would life look like when realized? What experiences would I have? That's a nice question. I think that when one is realized, one doesn't have an awareness of the second. So when one is realized, they are oneness, they are Advaita. So they don't have any sense that there is another object or another thing. So therefore life is easier because there's no sense of separation. There's just a real connection with everything, as we are an interconnected organism. When one is realized, one is living from that place, so one does not feel as though one could be kind or cruel or unforgiving or lacking in compassion, let's say, because how could one do that when one is doing that to oneself? It wouldn't do that. So realized people are kinder, they're more compassionate, they're more loving, they're more forgiving, they're more available to life, and they find life effortless and not so hard work, and they find that things come easily to them. So that's what life looks like when one has realized oneself in this lifetime and achieved Jivan Mukti. So it's something to look forward to if one hasn't already actualized it within one's life now. Well, thank you, Tracy. Alan says, is discipline cannot be considered a limitation, contraction for what we are already? No, I disagree that, but I accept your opinion, and I value and hear it. But no, for me, discipline is not a limitation. I find it very hard when I sit with people who, I'm talking about realized people now, such as myself, who suggest that I don't even think realized people would really suggest that one is not always growing and expanding in this reality. Obviously, the truth is the truth, and this is a fact. But the truth in this reality, in this consciousness, is variable. It can merge and mold and manipulate into so many different forms and shapes. And spiritual practices evolve this process tenfold. They speed it up so one can have such a huge variety of experiences of oneself. You know, I find life can be very boring and mundane if one is doing the same thing all the time. It's so much more interesting and dynamic and exciting if one can taste all the different manifestations of reality. And there are so many different variations of that one reality. Like human beings, there is so many variations of humanness, and yet there is only really one human being that has come into this physical world, and we are all just replicas of that one human being, that original human being. But we like to taste those differences. We like to experience those flavors of individuality, and who is anybody to say otherwise, because they actually aid and assist us in manifesting more of an awareness of our Atman, not less. Because that reflection, again, that mirror of the self, is so profound, it's so powerful. To see oneself in another experience of oneself is why we're born, it's why we exist, it's why the world is realized, so that we can have all those different experiences of ourselves. When I look at you and the mirror, the reflection of yourself upon myself, and I see myself in you, that's such a profound experience, and it has infinite, endless possibilities as to where it can take oneself, to the awareness and realization of oneself. It's infinite, it's limitless, and it's so exciting and expansive, and I couldn't wish for anything. It's the opposite of limited. It really is. It's profound. It's very beautiful. Thank you, though, for your comment, your question. What? I'm not quite sure how. So this last question is from Nico, I think. I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly. And it says, how can we really understand the messages that our body sends us? Well, on the first hangout that I did with Philippe a few weeks ago, I was teaching about the Panchakoshas, which are from Advaita Vedanta philosophy. And they are the layers, and one of the layers is the body that is wrapped around the real self, the Atman. And an individual over-identifies, they believe themselves to be these layers, these sheets of unreality. They're not who we really are, that's what that means. And the body is one of them. So identifying with the body, I am the body, is one of the modes of being that human beings experience in their lifetime. And even though it's not who we really are, even though it's not our Atman, we do have a solid, tangible, maybe illusionary, but real sense of the body. And it's important that when one is still in the identification of one's body, that one is able to acknowledge and recognize when that body is speaking to oneself. Because you cannot say that the body is separate from the Atman. The body is separate from the Atman. When one is identifying with the body, then the body is the Atman, because only the Atman is real. So how can something not be the Atman that exists in your reality? So whatever is real for you is real. And that's why I teach Advaita Vedanta and not the other kind of Vedanta, because it teaches that it's an illusion and therefore it's not real. And this is not true Advaita Vedanta. True Advaita Vedanta teaches that you are real and you are the Atman. And whatever is in your experience right now is real for you. And who am I to say other than that? Because then I would be a second opinion. And my second opinion would make there be another. And there is no other. There's only you in the room. So I'm speaking to the you in the room that exists, that knows this, that knows that you are real and that what you are in the experience of is real. So therefore you must listen to your body if in that moment your body is telling you that it's real, because your body can, in its communication with you, in your identification with it, it can lead you to an awareness of your Atman if you approach it from the sense of non-identification with the body. So you say, okay, my body is trying to tell me something, and even though I know I'm not the body, I'm still really feeling like the body is real. So I must listen to it and I must hear what it has to communicate with me, rather than saying, oh, my body is in pain or it's suffering and it feels really real and it is real and that's it. So you have a little bit of separation from that experience. So you feel a little bit of an awareness of observing, witnessing the body, so that the Atman is witnessing and observing the body rather than just being completely submerged in the body. So that's the first thing that you must do in order to be able to listen to what the body has to say. You have that little bit of separation so that you can observe and witness it. And by doing that, you are automatically experiencing your Atman, because your Atman observes and witnesses all experiences from this place here. And it sees those things away from itself and sees those things not as itself, but as something that has become itself and become real, that it needs to tell or share with that, no, you're not real. You're in a mistaken belief, and we have to change that or alter that in some way. So you speak to it, you have a relationship with it, and it makes all the difference. So you can ask, what is this suffering? What is this pain? What is this sensation that I'm experiencing? What is it telling me? What is it trying to show me? And then you can sit for a while. Once you've asked your body the question, you can sit and allow an indirect intuition to arise from your being. And you can practice doing that, and you can trust that that is real for you, that you know more than anyone, more than any books, more than any experts, you know what is real for you, your unique self, your unique experience of yourself. And then you act according to what you have interpreted or perceived that your body is telling you. And the more you do this, and the more faith and trust that you allow into your life for your own indirect intuition, your own guidance, the more you will have stronger, more solid intuitions, and the knowledge and the wisdom will arise from your Atman more frequently, more effortlessly, more with a sense of freedom that, yes, of course I know, because nobody can really know me more than I know myself. So of course I know what's true for me, what's right for me. The answers are inside of me. And that's the goal of life, to know that you are that, and that all the answers that you need is within you. You just have to learn how to draw it out, how to listen to it. That's great. So I think we should finish now. I've really enjoyed myself again. I like being here with you. I feel like I'm speaking to myself, which is true. And it feels very real when I'm sat here speaking to myself. There's no one here but me. So, thank you so much for those of you that have joined us this evening in my Urban Ashram in Lancashire. And I hope, I have faith, I believe that even if just one of you takes away something from this evening and puts it into practice, even if it's just the concept of maybe thinking more about the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta and its practices, and that they are worthwhile and they are capable of transforming one's daily life and improving it so one can experience more happiness. So I thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy, and saying thank you, and I'll hopefully see you soon. Thank you very much.